Welcome to the Pursuing Freedom Outdoors podcast, a place where backcountry warriors can share their stories of grit, service, healing, and wilderness adventures. I'm your host, Tom Walton, Marine Corps veteran, full-time cop, and aspiring hunting and fishing guide. Join me and others as we journey from the hood to the woods in pursuit of freedom in the outdoors. All right. Welcome to the Pursuing Freedom Outdoors podcast. I'm your host, Tom Walton, and today is episode 22. If I got my count right, you guys will probably notice that I screwed up the count because I'm a Marine and counting is difficult for me. But I do believe I got it right today that we're episode 22. And today I am joined by Charles Whitwam, who is the president and founder of Howl for Wildlife, which is a conservation organization.
Hey, folks, I just wanted to briefly apologize to Charles. I introduced him as Charles Whitman, and if you look at the spelling of his name, it is actually Charles Whitwam. It's important to me to respect my guest and folks with pronouncing their names right. So introducing to you, Charles Whitwam. Charles, thank you and apologies, brother. Back to the show.
Charles was born and raised in Michigan until he was about 23 years old. And from there, he moved around a bit until he ultimately ended up in the San Francisco Bay Area in California. Charles was introduced into hunting and the outdoors at a very young age by his father, hunting being one of his earliest memories. Charles also has a history with skiing and backpacking, but these days it's pretty much all about hunting for him. Charles is an Army veteran, and he briefly studied in New Mexico. Charles has also owned several businesses over the years. In 2017, he jumped full-time into being a professional hunting guide. So Charles, man, thank you so very much for spending some of your valuable time with me. Like we said before we start recording, it's a very busy time of the year. This is December 30th, so right in the middle of the holidays, everyone's busy. You took the time to come on, so thank you very much for doing that.
Thanks for having me, and nice meeting you, Thomas.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thomas or Tom?
Tom works great. Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah, so I might as well just get in and get started, man. Let's just give the listeners a little bit of a deep dive into some of those earliest memories, man. Like, what was life like growing up in Michigan hunting with your dad?
Well, my dad was absolutely obsessed with hunting, and he mostly bow hunted. And he was born in 1942, and I know he started bow hunting in the late 50s. And then he started some bow hunting clubs as well in Michigan. And I mean, it's just like, that was his hobby. That's what he loved. And he really used to hunt ducks and go fishing all the time and all that. But then he just eventually all he was interested in is hunting whitetails with his bow. So that's how I was brought up. And plus, all my family hunted, my uncles and my brothers and everybody around us. I mean, I thought that I didn't realize that some people didn't hunt actually for a while. So that's what we ate, and I was always excited to go hunting, or before I was old enough. Sometimes I'd go with my dad before I was old enough, but when I was 12, when I could actually go bow hunt deer, I mean, that was the biggest thing in my life. Like, I can finally go on those northern Michigan trips, and I just kept doing it, and it's never left me.
Fantastic, man. So it looks like you moved around quite a bit. Was that moving, kind of going around different parts of the country before you ended up where you're at, was that associated with your military service? Well, when did you end up joining the Army?
No. So I joined in 98. It was Army Reserves. And I really didn't do much at all, honestly. I joined, and there's really no too much of a story there. I really ended up not doing anything. I was 88 Mike, personal transport operator, so I trained to drive everything from Humvees to 6x6s to semis, whatever had wheels. And so, no, I moved around just because, well, I was young. I moved to Ann Arbor first in Michigan, and I played rugby for a little bit for the University of Michigan, and then I moved to Chicago just because I had some friends out there, and I lived in downtown Chicago. That was fun. And that's when I really got into backpacking and and all that, I worked for a company called Moose Jaw. I managed one of their stores, and it was all like we would outfit people to do these trips, like to Everest and cool places, right? And I had just started going out west a lot for backpacking, so I would take these pretty long trips with some friends, like 4 friends, 12 friends, whatever it was, different years, and we would just go to different places out west and just backpack, not hunting or anything. I would still just hunt in Michigan and in Ohio. And then I moved to San Francisco. I had some friends out there too, but I got a job as a like a backcountry guide, and they do trips all over the world, but my first job was in the Sierras. So that's actually one of the reasons I moved to California, and I did a I don't know, I think it was like a 35-day trip and basically in the Sierras. And I stayed out here ever since, and bought a trucking company. It was a 100% biodiesel powered trucking company. And at the same time, I also bought a rock climbing company that I had been working for, and I still own the rock climbing company. And so that's how I pay myself. And then I started guiding hunters in California, I think around, like 2017. So I do that as well.
Awesome, man. Yeah, it's always, it's funny. I was just talking to, Joe Condila. So I told you he was on the show. His episode just aired a few days before we recorded this. And, we're talking about a lot of people don't think of California as like a hunting destination, but it really can be, obviously there's some really good blacktail deer hunting. There's good mule deer hunting. There's hogs, in some parts of the state. But I think to me, one of the draws of ideas of going back down to California to hunt would be to go do a big mountain black bear hunt, because which we'll get into, I'm sure, but there's tons of black bears. If you're a bear hunter, it'd be like a bear hunting destination for sure. So, I think it's great that you're down there doing that. Hey, folks, just wanted to take a quick break from the show to talk about my most recent partnership with a good friend of mine, Jake Collier, and his company, One Outdoors. One Outdoors provides a trusted place to purchase outdoor experiences, gear, and services. They aim to positively impact people and the environment by donating 10% of all of their net profits to Restoration Outdoors, a nonprofit, which in turn invests in mental health and conservation. One Outdoors offers trips around the globe, whether you're interested in hunting in Africa or fishing in Alaska, Patagonia, and more. They can customize your outdoor experiences and beyond just hunting and fishing to whitewater rafting. You name it, folks. If you can dream it up in the outdoors, One Outdoors can help make that dream come true. And I'm proud to be partnering with them and consulting on trips and hunts. So if you're interested in booking a trip of a lifetime with One Outdoors, you can reach me or reach out to me at thomas@pursuingfreedomoutdoors.com. It's thomas@pursuingfreedomoutdoors.com, or you can contact me directly through Instagram, Facebook, you name it. But One Outdoors, folks, really excited to be working with these guys. So thank you very much for listening to the Pursuing Freedom Outdoors podcast, and we'll get back to the show. What general region are you guiding in, or and like what do you primarily guide for?
Yeah, it's Northern California, on the coast, Sonoma County, Mendocino County, and I primarily in California, I basically only hunt blacktail and guide blacktail. I guide bear hunts, I guide pig hunts, I guide turkey hunts. I think that's it for California. Yeah, might get into some elk in a few years up there as well, but I basically stick to the coastal A zone and B zones in California.
Gotcha. So you are probably super familiar and well acquainted with my favorite bush in the whole world, poison oak.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of that. Thankfully, I don't really, I don't get it too bad. I'll get like a little patch on my wrist or whatever. I don't get it too bad though. But man, I've got some friends who, God, it looks like they're lepers. They get it every year. I don't get it too bad, thankfully. But it's out there. You can't really not get it.
No, it's ridiculous. When I was growing up as a little kid, we would go, do you know where like Lopez Lake is? It's kind of out by, it's in San Luis Obispo County, like South San Luis Obispo County, kind of out east of like Pismo, kind of in the hill country out there.
I know that area. I don't know that.
Yeah, so we go camp there every year when I was a kid, and they had like quite a turkey population and a bunch of feral peacocks. And when I was a kid, I used to chase those critters all around. Like I'd make little homemade bows and think I was going to go hunt them. But like my dad would always not understand how I could run through all the poison oak at the campground and not get any poison oak. And so I used, when I was little, thought I was good, but man, there was something about becoming a teenager. I don't know if it was like the hormone change or what, but and I mean, I ended up getting it all the time as a teenager. And I'm one of those guys now. I mean, I haven't been exposed to it since I was in my 20s. But you know, like early 20s when I was in the Marine Corps. But man, when I got it, I always got it good. After about 13, 14 years old, I would get it good. And I remember one summer in particular, I got into a patch of it, and it's a kind of a long story, but it ended up the next day when I woke up, I couldn't open my eyes, and I ended up having to go to the hospital. But I think I spent every summer of my high school career covered in poison oak, because you just
I got poison ivy really bad when I was in Michigan. When I was a kid, I got it really bad, and but I've only had it just really one time where it was bad, you know, or it was super bad. I mostly worry about ticks out here and rattlesnakes. That's what I'm always looking out for.
Yeah. I remember a ton of rattlesnakes growing up. That's one of the things I tell people, like where I live right now. Two things I don't really have to worry about there's three things. Three things I don't have to worry about where I live particularly. You could go not far and have to worry about some of them, but in my immediate area, I don't have to worry about rattlesnakes, which is good and bad, because when I go back to rattlesnake country, I'm complacent now. And then don't have to worry about black widow spiders. I've never seen a black widow spider where I live. And then poison oak, man. Like the three things that I hated the most about California, I don't have to deal with up here. So I'll take my snow and icy winters over all those critters and plants. But
I'll add black widows to that list too. Yeah, I see a lot of those. I don't like those either, for sure.
Yeah,
that kind of stuff's what I worry about. Man, you know, and really, I don't think black widows really bother you, but I don't care. I don't even like looking at them.
No, they're heinous looking critters, and yeah, they're everywhere down there. Rattlesnakes, I actually don't mind. I don't want to get bit, and I get complacent when I do go to places with rattlesnakes now, because it's not living around them. But when I was a teenager, I used to think I had this idea that I was going to be a wildlife biologist and snakes were going to be my study, because I watched too much Crocodile Hunter. Yeah. So I was always out in the woods looking for snakes and rattlesnakes and all kinds of stuff. I never had a real fear of them, but have had some close calls.
Yeah.
So yeah, California, you're guiding. There's some pretty awesome country down there. Is this your business? Are you guiding for another outfitter, private land, public land? Like how does it work?
Yeah. So I've had my own, I do have my own business, but I haven't been operating that for a while, because I've got an outfitter out here that I can pretty much guide whenever I want. So, and he does really well on blacktails and black bear. It's all private land. I wouldn't guide on public because I don't want to give away the spots, you know? I was just talking to someone about that. I'm like, man, I would never want to guide on public, because it takes so much time and energy to find those spots. Why would I give that away to somebody, you know?
That's
I don't guide on public. No.
That's a very, very valid point. You know, I know when I was briefly owning that outfitting business, you know, we were 100% on public land, pretty much all national forest. And, you know, to combat that, we had a fairly strict policy on not taking anybody within driving distance. You know, if you called us and you could reasonably drive to hunt here, you know, we would just tell you we were booked up. Yeah. And we would get the guys that had to fly in. But I mean, it's an unfortunate reality, and you do get burned on public land doing that. Even doing the nonprofit stuff, you know, I've taken turkey hunting, something that I'm embarrassingly addicted to. I love turkey hunting in the spring. It's one of my favorite things to do up here.
Yeah.
It is something that, because I never hunted in California when I was a kid, I would love to go back and do like turkey and bear one of these days, just go hunt my home state. But love turkey hunting. I do a lot of taking veterans and veterans' families turkey hunting in the spring. And there's been a couple of times now, you know, we always tell people like, hey, we're taking you to public land or public accessible spots. You know, just be respectful. You know, if you want to come back, maybe, just do the courteous thing. Hey, dude, like I want to kind of go to the spot. Are you going to be there? Is it okay with you? I mean, obviously it's public land. We're not going to keep you out of it. That would be illegal and unethical. But, there's the courtesy and ethics surrounding public land spots and us sharing these things. And we'd always kind of also like, hey, we also want to keep the spot good for next year's veteran when he comes to the camp or his kid comes to the camp. And we want to be able to have a quality experience for him. So respect it. And eventually, our honey holes, we would pull up to the trailhead and have veterans that we had taken on previous years showing up, right after us. And so that kind of burned us on that. We actually just decided we'd move our camp to areas we just don't ever hunt. So it a little bit more inaccessible. And if they burn those spots, it doesn't burn our hide so much.
Yeah.
Definitely a thing.
Black bears, I wouldn't be opposed to guiding on public land for black bears because I don't know, it's just a different kind of a hunt and we don't take enough black bears. So that doesn't bother me. It's all just boot hunting for black bear anyway. There's just not enough people. I think that, I don't know what it is, not enough people that go black bear hunting. I hear all the time people are out deer hunting and all they see is bears and I'm like, where's your bear tag? And it's like, oh, well, we didn't know what to do if we got a bear or, can you eat black bear? All those questions that hunters still have.
Yeah.
And I think especially in California, I think the black bear, to eat black bear here it's actually my favorite thing to eat is black bear. I mean, we have just the habitat, all the acorns, all the berries, everything that they eat here is fantastic. It's fantastic table fare. Definitely never had a bad one. But when it comes to pigs on public land, that's kind of highly prized on public land. And I've taken a lot of pigs on public land. And, and the same thing for deer. I mean, you can figure out where the public land is. There's deer that's all just time. It's time and how to hunt them,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And we'll have to circle back to some of the black bear stuff, especially about California and I talked with Joe about this and just that stigma around bears and whether and the usability, eatability, for lack of better, more educated sounding terms, of bear. And I'm right there with you, man. My wife and I would agree with you. It's one of our favorite game meats. We get sad when we run out of bear, and even here in Idaho, where we do have a fairly strong bear hunting culture in North Idaho, I can't tell you how many people like, I'm not going to eat those greasy things, or they're full of worms or whatever. Like they got in their heads somehow along the way that they're not good. They're not safe to eat. They're not good to eat, whatever it is. And it's just, I know I'm working hard to break that stigma. I want people to hunt black bears. I want people to eat black bears because I want black bears to be valuable and I want there to be black bear hunting opportunities and conservation efforts around the country. So, I mean, I'm like, make bear grease great again is like, I think a good slogan. So
yeah, absolutely. I eat probably 3 or 4 times a week. We eat it all the time.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, there's nothing you can't do with it. It tastes, I mean, it's a solid red meat. We like it as a beef replacement more than any other game meat.
Yeah.
If I'm going to make something that just specifically needs kind of a beefier, stronger red meat, it seems like bear usually fits that little bit better flavor, meatier flavor.
Yeah.
I don't know, stronger, but it's good.
Yeah.
So for guiding, was that something that you kind of fell into, or you were like, man, you always wanted to kind of be a hunting guide, or you just realized, man, I guide these kind of things. I love to hunt. Why don't I combine them?
Well, I just had a lot of people asking me about it for a number of years. I used to make a lot of hunting videos, and so people would always ask me about guiding. And then I talked to an outfitter. I filmed the hunt on his property, and then he asked me to start guiding. And I wasn't quite sure if I wanted to, but eventually I gave it a shot. And then it really came down to opportunities that I had to guide on private land and landowners that I'd talked to. And, they were like, yeah, you could do that here. I said, all right, I can pay you this much and blah, 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 blah. So it really just came down to just having the opportunities to do it. And a lot of it was pigs. And then I had a lot of turkey properties, which were pretty easy to get. So I'd just say it was this opportunity. And I like doing it. It's fun to do. I mean, it's hunting. It's the same thing, really. And you're just getting paid for it. So it's a pretty cool job.
Yeah,
really.
absolutely. I would agree with you on that, man. It's a good time. And it's fun because, I've had some bad clients, but my general experience was that most people, they're there to have a good time. And, um, you're sharing the experience with them. They might be paying you and you're trying to make a good experience for them, but you're still sharing the mountain with them. If the weather's bad, you're sharing that sucky part with them too. And I all day today, I was actually texting one of my former lion hunting clients. We're trying to find another cat hunt for him to go on, and just a really good dude. And even though I don't involved in that business anymore, not only are we good friends, but he's the kind of guy that he had a good time with me. If I went and became a lion guide somewhere else or any kind of hunting guide, he would want to book with me, right? I mean, that you build good relationships with some of your clients, and that to me is the best part, is the friendships that you can make with some of these folks.
Yeah. I've had some great time. I've never really had a bad hunt with anybody. A lot of different characters and stuff, of course, but and a lot of new hunters. I've taken out like a lot of totally brand new hunters or relatively new hunters. And it can be, you just gotta have the right mindset,
Yeah.
for it can be frustrating because, you want them to get something or whatever, and maybe they're not making the right decisions or they're not listening, but they're brand new to it. So I mean, this is their first time doing any of that, being under pressure and understanding, how to be, how to move fast if you need to, but then also calm yourself down when you need to. All those things. It's all just a part of hunting,
Yeah.
So, and I do my best to understand that when I'm with everybody, that I'm with, like me personally, I'll often hunt. I probably got, man, I don't know. I hunted and guided this year for, I don't know, probably 90 days, and that'll be pretty regular for me year after year. And I like to look at that kind of stuff as like, if you do anything, for that long and for that many days a year, you're just frankly going to be a lot better at it and a lot more comfortable than somebody who maybe they just get a week off a year. And so it's just like anything, you want to be a good welder. You got to weld all the time. Can't just weld once a year, you know? And so people's, their expectations might be a little bit higher, but then they quickly learn like, wow, I have a lot to learn. Like there's a lot to this. And there is. And that's
Yeah.
cool. It really can be you can make it a part of your life and a lifestyle, and you just continually get better, and you're always learning all the time.
Yeah. I mean, that's fantastic, man. And, to me, that's as I continue to develop my career, in the guiding, both hunting and fishing, listening to someone that's doing it and is motivated and passionate to, as you are. One of the reasons I do the show, man, is it inspires me. I mean, you're motivating me to keep grinding and keep trying to get there, because I have had some positive experiences, but it's nice to hear other guys from different parts of the country that speak well of the profession, because I have talked to guys that get burned out and complain about the money and all those things. And I think it's one of those things, man, you're either passionate about it and it just, when you're doing it, you love it and it's not work, or you're not and you're going to get burned out. But thank you for that, sharing all that, because I said, hopefully I motivated the listeners, but you definitely motivated me. Thank you.
Yeah, cool. For sure.
No, it's good stuff, man. If somebody, just before we move on, because I definitely want to get to Howl, but before we get out to Howl, if someone wanted to book a hunt with you or get a hold of you for something like that to book a hunt, how would they go about doing that?
Right now, you'd want to book through the outfitter that I'm with. It's lockwoodhuntingservices.com, and that's all the blacktail and bear and turkey and pigs, all in Northern California. And I do guide once a year in South Dakota as well for mule deer and whitetail. I do rut hunts out there, but I do that with John Stallone. We take basically 2 guys a year that we're guiding, and then John will have other guys doing kind of a semi-guided hunts on some other properties out there as well.
Gotcha. That's
That's
pretty
a lot
awesome,
of
man. I bet. Yeah, I've
That's
not been out to South Dakota, but I can imagine that is a blast of a hunt.
It is. It's archery. Well, what we guide is archery. We're hunting the Cedar Breaks of the Cheyenne River, and it's incredible. It's such a fun
Nice.
hunt. Mule deer in the rut like that. You see a lot of deer, see a lot of good bucks, and it's just perfect for bow hunting those Cedar Breaks. So much fun.
That's awesome, man. That sounds fantastic. Any last thoughts or particular stories you want to share from your guiding adventures?
Man, there's so many. There's so many of them. No, I mean, not like I'd have to think about it because they all just sort of meld into one. I just really love thinking of a group that came out from I think they came out from South Carolina and North Carolina this year. One of the groups I had in August, and they'd never taken a blacktail, and it was a guy and his daughter, and then I think two friends of theirs, and it was a guy and his son. And it was just cool for them to see when people come out to see California and they see how beautiful it is, and they're always like, man, this wasn't what I was expecting. This is incredible. And getting them on stalks and, you know, getting them their first, the girl, her first black bear, which was a color phase bear, which is pretty special, but we get a lot of those in California. The blacktail that she got was a great 4x4, and we were on it for, I don't know, several hours before it got up, and she made a great shot. And I'm just as excited as, like I said, when I say it's like I'm hunting, I'm doing, you know, I'm not pulling the trigger, but it's the same. Like, I'm super excited about it, you know, like I'm on the glass or whatever it is, and we're, you know, trying to calm ourselves down and whispering and trying to communicate and all that, watching the clients to make sure that they're good and you feel like they know what to do, you know, and just those experiences. I mean, I just have those over and over and over again. And it could be turkey hunting too. Like, that's so much fun. Turkey hunting is so much fun, like you said. People just get so excited. I like watching people experience their, you know, their first encounters with those animals, and they usually get one too. So it's super cool. And showing them how to break down an animal. That's probably my favorite part, is showing them how to break down an animal, because I feel like people aren't learning a whole bunch when they go on a guided hunt. And what I mean by that is, you know, where we're hunting deer or turkey, it's just game rich. You know what I mean? It's really good private land. You can't expect that kind of a hunt if you're just going to go out on your own, you know, and you're not going to see the amount of animals that you do on a hunt with us as if you were to go out in public land and all that. So I try to, you know, make sure people know that so they don't have those expectations. But what I can teach them is one thing that is the same is when you get an animal, here's how to take care of it. And we're doing a lot of hunting in the coastal mountains, so we pack out a lot of the meat. So I love breaking down animals in the field and packing it out and doing the gutless method and showing people that. And that's one thing that they can really take away and add that to their skill set. So that's probably my favorite thing. I've never really thought about it. I've never really broken it down, but yeah, that's probably my favorite thing is that.
I mean, it's fantastic. You're sharing, like we said, that experience, but to just be able to like share the knowledge is pretty special. And I can relate, having done like a youth camp this last year. Man, I took 3 teenagers. They were a brother and 2 sisters. I got assigned to me this day one of this youth camp. We took them out. Their dad is a veteran and he's in law enforcement, and brought them out to camp. And we had like an unusually good public land turkey day. By 1:00 in the afternoon. All 3 of them had birds, and one in particular was the second bird that we took. The young lady that was on the gun, man, her reaction after, I mean, we were working this bird for a while, and he's coming in, and I can see him, and I'm telling her like, all right, hey, he's coming, you got this, you know, just breathe, remember to put the dot here, squeeze and do all the things right, and walking her through it. And, you know, when she finally shot the turkey, her reaction, just that, like, I mean, she's shaking, she's excited, she's just like, I can't believe it, I did it. And I mean, those moments are more special than any like animal I've ever killed for myself. Those are some special moments, and just to get to be a part of that for somebody for a brief moment is pretty awesome, to help them accomplish that. So yeah, it's awesome, man.
Yeah, 100%.
So, you've been guiding, and while you've been a guide, you started, what I would say, I don't know how to put it. I feel like I've noticed Howl for Wildlife kind of on the board since your inception of it. It just seems like one day there was no Howl for Wildlife, and then all of a sudden there was. And I don't know if it's you got on a couple podcasts early, or you're really good at what you do with media and branding, but I feel like you guys have made a big splash, man, and have done some really incredible work around the country. So let's dive into that. and just start with, where did Howl come from?
So I got involved in California on a bill in I don't know, 2018 maybe, and it had something to do with wild pigs. There was some language in that bill from the Humane Society that kind of went unnoticed but had some possible consequences. So I helped organize just a grassroots effort and education on that to get people to oppose that, and we killed that bill. And then and that was like really my first experience in policy, or how commissions work, or how legislative bills work, all that kind of stuff. And then in 2021, January of 2021, there was a bill. It was a Senate bill, and it was to ban bear hunting outright in California. And I felt like there wasn't enough noise around it. It had just come out, but I didn't hear about it from any of the people that I felt, or the groups that I felt you should be hearing it from. And there's like no real plan. And especially when you hear something in California, a lot of the times the plan is, well, this sucks, but it's a liberal state, so there's nothing we can do, or something like that. And so myself and John Stallone, who was with me in Howl, we started a grassroots effort that went nationwide to get people aware of what was going on in California, and to write into all the legislators, to the senator. Like, the senator was in San Francisco, if you lived in San Francisco and you hunt, make those calls, show up to his office, send these emails in, and let's just make a bunch of noise about it. And in 5 days, I think we had, like, I always forget exactly now, it's like 27,000 emails, and I don't know how many thousands of calls and all that. And it became like a news story. Like, Meat Eater picked it up and was talking about it and all that. And we got that bill killed in 5 days. And I remember my buddy JR called me, and he said, that bill is dead. It was the first, that I'd heard about it. And I was like, are you kidding me? He goes, no, it's dead. Like, they took it out. So, I basically wanted to harness that energy and that grassroots power and start something official, right? Like, put a name to this, and let's do that for a lot of these issues that we face. Because one thing that was certainly missing is a real grassroots effort. And I also think real legitimate, impactful ways for people to get involved. I just didn't feel like that existed. And there was options out there, but they weren't being used, at least not in our community, right? I've seen it used in a lot of, environmental organizations or anti-hunting organizations. And I just question them, like, why aren't we doing these things? They work. So I spent the next year basically creating software that would be different than what's out there, and would be a lot more impactful than what is out there. And about a year later, January 11th of 2022, Howl was launched. And what that was specifically, it was the website, and you can sign up and all that, and sign up for alerts, blah, blah, blah. But what it really was the software that was developed. And for the most part, it centered around being able to email decision makers, which exists. Every organization has a software where you can email, whoever, commissioners or senators or whoever else. Ours was, and is still, very different, because when you email, you're actually sending something different, like a different email, than the next person who comes, and the next person who comes, and the next person who comes. So, and that, from talking to legislators and talking to policy folk, that came out of the conversations that I'd had with them about, how much weight these form letters carry, how much weight do form emails carry, where everybody's just sending in the same thing. And it's saying, I'm a proud member of this organization, and blah, 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 blah. And then there's the email. And it's like the same thing over and over again. I wanted to personalize that experience, where it was more of an email from you personally to that legislator or whoever it is. And of course, you can write whatever you want, but a lot of people, they might not know what to write. So that's where I used AI to basically create in the background. I would create tens of thousands of different variations of emails that were attacking that issue from different angles. So you're basically presented with one of 10,000 examples to send to that decision maker. So because of that, and because they were seen as unique, and while it's not the same thing over and over again, we've had a lot of success with that. And then, of course, we get into, how important it is to make phone calls, and we can even do a thing where you can hit all the legislators. At the time, it was Twitter, their Twitter accounts or their X accounts. And then we got into over this last year where you can make a video testimony. So you record it on your phone or on your computer, and that gets sent to your legislator as well. So I just look at, technology and what's out there, and giving people at that level, that type of advocacy, emails, phone calls, giving them a better way to reach the decision makers. And that is what really set Howl apart. And I think beyond that, because there's enough lobbyists out there, and there's enough, organizations who do things like on your behalf kind of a thing. Like I'll go to a commission meeting and there'll be all the groups there, and they'll say, we're representing X number of members, blah, 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 blah. And I look at it as like, well, why don't we have those members show up? Instead of having a representative there and you're saying, I'm representing all these people, why don't we have more of those people show up? Right.
Mhm.
So that's kind of the angle that we have pushed, is let's get more hunters educated on the issues and have them represent themselves. And a lot of that you can do through Howl. Like we'll teach you the issues and give you talking points, or lead you through, here's how a commission meeting works. Hey, we're all going to be there. Let's all talk about this. Let's have some Zoom meetings to talk about the issues. But what it comes down to is you actually showing up. And that's the big difference between us and every other org out there, is we really try to activate the individual.
That's awesome. I think you bring up some really good points. And, I'm not an expert on policy by any means, but I am familiar with, legislators and legislature and how it all works and how bills are passed. I mean, it greatly not only affects my hobbies as a hunter and angler, trapper and all those things, but it also affects my day job in law enforcement greatly, right? I mean, we're always having to pay attention to legislative updates. And it wasn't until some of these big issues came up where I really did pay attention to write the people that I voted for, write the people, even if I didn't vote for them, to write the people that got elected to represent me. I think it doesn't take long if you pay attention to realize, like, hey, these form letters, yes, they're great. I want these organizations to keep doing that. But the personal note that you talked about is huge. I actually stopped sending the form letters, and I would just get that information and type up my own thing, and play the veteran card, and hey, I voted for you. I love 90% of what you do, but this issue that you're standing for is just a big old no-go. We can't do that, man. Like for all these reasons, right? And I don't know that ever got actually read by a representative or a senator, but it had to have gotten read by somebody, I would imagine. That's one thing I guess I don't know.
Well, one thing certainly, it doesn't happen every time, but it happens a lot. So the more personal it is, and we've tried to make this personalized, you will get responses back from legislators. And sometimes they'll be just form responses for sure. Like, thank you for emailing our office, blah, blah, blah. But what happens a lot is you will get really specific. Like you can tell that legislator is actually emailing you back. Like they're repeating what you said. They're diving into that issue even more. So it was actually read. And what we've done is, a lot of people, they'll send that to us. So they'll post it on social media and say, hey, I sent my Howl in, and look at this reply I just got back, and now that's up to you, to reply back and carry on that conversation. So that certainly works. And what's been really cool is when the emails Howl doesn't get brought up, because the legislators, they have no idea it's coming, that it's like going through Howl. We don't have our name on it or anything, but the number of emails will get brought up, like in Senate meetings or House meetings or whatever, at the state level. I haven't heard about it at the federal level yet, but at the state level, it'll get brought up a lot. And certainly commission meetings, and it took a while for the anti-hunting groups to figure out that this was originating from our so what they ended up in many states, what they've said, they've tried to discredit us a lot, saying that we're just bots and these aren't real people. Howl for Wildlife is doing this, and I've gone through this in different states. I've even had to give testimony on this, actually. And there's even a lawsuit going on about this very thing in Montana right now. And so that's what led me to create the video testimony tool. I was like, okay, well, if somebody sends in a video testimony, are you going to say that's a bot, as well? So these are all real people, and they're people who are concerned. And what was cool to hear was, from the orgs we work with and that we've partnered with, and they talk to their policy guys, and they're like, man, we're hearing like, where all these hunters come from? Where have they been? That makes me feel really good. That keeps me motivated when I hear those things, because I know that it's working. And I will say, there's definitely been, I think, on a lot of issues and just attitudes and even strategy, certainly strategy, that I'm seeing from the community and from new orgs popping up and old orgs who are doing something different. I 100% think it's because of our influence. Like, there is a before Howl and there's an after Howl, and I'm really proud of that. We have an effect, and we're really good at getting people involved in the issues, to the point where I think if we were around in Prop 114 in Colorado, the reintroduction of wolves through ballot box, I think if we were around, I think, because that vote was like 1.3%. It was decided it was 33,000 votes. I think if we were around, that vote would have went the other way. I really do. 100%. Because that's what we're good at.
Yeah, and you can't put that one back in the box, unfortunately.
No.
I think the best thing that folks can do when it comes to something like that is just, fight the battle on the front that it is. And, I guess it's, for lack of better terms, it's damage control now. But yeah, man, I think it's very true. And I think since seeing Howl come on the landscape, just from my observations, I'm not involved, I've not been involved with you guys. And as far as like conservation organizations, I've been a paid member of a handful, gotten involved in BHA through the Armed Force Initiative a little bit. But I would definitely agree with you. I've noticed that have noticed my observations being that hunters, anglers, people that love public lands, I feel like their voices have been heard more. When these big policy issues come up where they're selling public lands, banning certain hunts, whatever the issue might be, that it seems to get squashed a lot faster. It seems like the hunting community is rallying, and these things are getting tackled, and we're telling our lawmakers, like, we don't want this, don't do it. And it's been getting honored quite a bit lately. So I definitely, as I said, just a very general observation, would have to agree with you. I think I've noticed the same thing. And I can't tell you that I would correlate it to Howl, only because I'm just now learning how you guys are doing that behind the scenes, but it definitely makes sense looking at the timeline in my mind.
Well, I think it's also the way we talk about certain things, especially I would say when it comes to predator management and hunting, and we oftentimes shoot ourselves in the foot because we're defending the right thing, but people don't always know the right way to say it, and what they want to do is they just want to get in a fight, and it comes out as like, we need to just kill the wolves because they're just fighting each other. And all the words, it just doesn't, the way I look at it is, we're such a small, like, sometimes we walk around as like we're a majority and we can just get away with whatever the heck we want to show or whatever the heck we want to say. And believe me, I get that, but there's strategy involved there. You have to formulate your message not so the anti-hunters get it. Like, who cares about them? Yeah, they're going to be against us. And they're a small group as well. The middle ground, who has no idea about hunting whatsoever. And if they do have an idea, they've probably been, the messaging that they've been touched with hasn't come from the hunting side of things. It's come from the anti-hunting side of things. And then when they do go and look at hunting, maybe they'll see it on TV, and it's just guys hunting. This guy's killing stuff. There's no more to it. So they don't know what to think. They have no context. For us, for our community, I think that has been our biggest failure over the last multiple decades, is not anticipating that, and not, as a multi-billion-dollar industry, not actually educating the non-hunting public on what hunting is. I'm not talking about R3. I'm not talking about like getting more hunters. That's fine. Whatever. I'm talking about, why does the non-hunting public really have no idea what hunting is at all? Why do they not tie hunting to conservation? Why do they not tie, they have this, most of the non-hunting public, when I ask them, they do have this idea of what a trophy hunter is, and it's just not true. It's tied to what the anti-hunters have told them. And why is that? How is it that a billion-dollar industry can get away with not educating the general public on what these things are? We talk to ourselves all the time. We're in the echo chamber all the time. Like, we're telling other hunters what these great things are. Like, okay, cool, but what impact is that going to have? If I'm not having an impact on the non-hunting public. And that's what, if we do that, I really do think the anti-hunting rhetoric becomes irrelevant. I really do. Because once you get below the surface on all of their claims, they really can't back it up with much else. But we've let them just ride on emotions and slogans and hashtags, and we have no response to it. And that's definitely where we do things differently. Let's figure out what that response is. And my goal is so the non-hunting public can understand what it is I'm saying, and hunters can appreciate it. My priority isn't hunters when it comes to education. The education that hunters need is completely different than the education that the non-hunting public needs. And it's just, we're going to get a lot further if we educate the non-hunting public.
Yeah, I think that makes a 100% sense. I see, like, the education that a hunter would need might not be the same. Hunters know why we hunt. We know that, how it's the traditions behind hunting. If you grew up in a hunting family, what it means memories wise with their family members, with their friends. We know what the adventure, the connection to the food chain, all the things that you could say are good reasons to go hunt. And we already know that, right? The hunters know that, but the non-hunters don't understand it. And I know just in my daily interactions with folks at work that don't hunt, I live in an area where hunting is kind of a thing, right? In the Pacific Northwest. Yeah. But I still have non-hunters. And those people are, just like you said, they could go either way. And usually when I talk to them, they're like, oh, yeah, I understand if you're hunting for food, but I really don't understand what those trophy hunters are all about. Why do you need to kill a mountain lion? And then that's your opportunity to educate that person on predator management, the truth about lion populations in Washington and the Northwest in general. And you can dive into all that. And then I always end it with, just like with bears, by the way, mountain lion tastes phenomenal. Fantastic table fare. You should eat mountain lion. I'll make it for you. We usually make chile verde out of it. It's like one of our favorites, but it's different. We hunters need to be educated on how to speak on the subjects, how to articulate what hunting means to them, to somebody that's not a hunter, and to avoid those things, and to just be willing to share with non-hunters. A lot of times a non-hunter, I think, if you're telling them a genuine story about hunting and why you like it, I think they're interested because you're telling a story, you're telling an adventure tale, and it's entertainment, right? They think it's interesting and they want to listen, and you have an opportunity to capitalize on that. So I absolutely see what you mean when hunters need a different education versus non-hunters. And I think hunters, just like the rest of American society, could also use some education on infighting. And I don't know how much you guys focus on that at Howl, but just this, it goes from the type of hunting that you do, somebody else doesn't like it. They like the way they hunt. Bear baiting is unethical and not fair chase. You shouldn't bear bait. Or using hounds is just cheating. Or you're just hunting private property in an apple orchard. Is that really fair chase? And whatever the BS excuse that they come up with, to knock on other hunters. You hunt with a rifle, that's cheating. I mean, whatever. I hear a lot of that. I mean, that's everywhere in the industry, right? There's infighting on that. There's hunters that I've met. I mean, one of my good buddies, we just had a conversation in text. He's like, I don't understand how anybody could ever shoot a mountain goat. He's like, they're beautiful. When you go out hiking in the mountains, you can practically just walk up to them. And I'm like, well, dude, people say that about turkeys, and you're a turkey hunting fanatic, but you can explain why there's challenge in turkey hunting. I'm sure it's the same with goats, man. Like personally, I'd love to go mountain goat hunting. And so there's that infighting. And then on top of that, you add our polarized politics in this country. And one thing that has really annoyed I've talked about on like 3 shows now, it's annoyed the ever living heck out of me, is bringing red, blue, left, right politics into the hunting scene. And you see some conservation organizations kind of buy into it. I saw one organization lately, one of their state chapters posted an article. Can't remember what magazine it was from. I think it was Politico, but one of their board members wrote an article, got published in, like I said, believe Politico, and the title was Rural Montanans essentially regretting voting for Donald Trump, right? Like they're wishing they didn't vote for Donald Trump because of his public land policies. And the first thing, I thought was like, man, you're just inflaming the masses. Yeah. Rather than uniting hunters, you just divided a whole bunch of hunters. And then you look at the comments, and every single comment under that is, well, you should have known this is what you were going to get. You voted for it. You voted for it. I'm so tired of hearing you voted for it lately when it comes to, conservation policy out of the federal government, So I don't know if you guys address that, but hunters need to be educated on like, knock it off, man. Knock it off. We can all agree some of these policies are crap. We can do what you guys are suggesting at Howl. Send your Howl to your legislators, and that works. We have proven it works. Mike Lee got shut down because Howl works. So rather than post these inflammatory articles and divide each other, why do we not just Howl?
So we talk about that a lot. As a 501c3, I stay away from politics, of course, or endorsing politics. We just stick to the issues. And so I don't care. It doesn't matter who is behind what, like if a Republican's behind something we don't like, we're going after him. And we have. Mm-hmm. Certainly. Mike Lee is one of those examples. There's what was his name? It's a congressman out of Georgia. He wanted to end the Pittman-Robertson Act. And he's a Republican, and we went after him really hard. Yeah, there's so I've written about that a lot. The coming together as hunters, if you're a lion hunter or a fisherman or whatever else, the reason why we need to come together, and there's multiple reasons why, but one example I like to give is if we look at the strategy of the anti-hunters, they will be at your doorstep one day. So it's not like they're going to stop once they, if they win one state or if they win one species or whatever, they're going to come after another species, and sooner or later that's going to be your species. So or sooner or later that battle is going to be in your state. And that's also a reason why we tell people, if you see something going on in another state, this is why it's important to get involved. And I think specific to hunting, because we hunt out of state so much, and actually the funds, like an easy example is Colorado. 55-60% of the funds that come to CPW come from non-resident tax, and it's similar for Montana, and I know Idaho, it's big. We hunt out of state, so you should speak up in those states as well, not just because you are a participant in that state, but also that battle will come to your state someday if we let it. And the battle over the species, Colorado is a perfect example over Prop 127 with the mountain lions. Not a lot of people hunt mountain lions. Most hunters do not hunt mountain lions. And we all came together to defeat that bill that would have banned mountain lion hunting in Colorado, which is a blue state, by the way. And it wasn't because suddenly we found 8 million new hunters to vote. The general public voted on that, and we won by 11%. And that right there shows you that if we educate the public on, and this was a mountain lion hunting issue, if we educate the public, most people are reasonable. And I don't care what side you're on, but when it comes to hunting, I'll bring it up like, hey, listen, it was Democrats who voted for that, who voted to keep mountain lion hunting. Let's just be honest here, okay? It certainly was a majority of Republicans because it's a blue state, it's Colorado. So that's important to know. And the got what you voted for thing, oh my gosh, it drives me crazy, because what it's suggesting is that had we voted for the Democrats, as opposed to had Trump not won, it's suggesting that the Democrats had all the all the solutions for, well, we'll just start with public lands. The Harris campaign had the exact same plan to sell public lands for housing. I've got the newsletters. Okay. So, but here's a point that I bring up, and this is why the whole thing is ridiculous. Since I've been doing Howl, I think 100% of the anti-hunting initiatives, like if it's legislative to ban a style of hunting or whatnot, I'm pretty sure 100% of those have come from Democrat politicians. Okay. The public lands issues, it's close to 100%. It's not quite 100%, has come from Republicans. Pittman Robertson issue came from Republicans. So it's just such a strange argument that, like, you got what you voted for. Like, okay, if we would have voted for the other side, then hunting is more protected. Like, I mean, what are you talking about? Like, we just can't. I don't wear the jersey of any politician, and I never will. Like, you'll never see me doing that. Like, sure, I vote, but I've got problems with all of them. So, yeah. Again, I just look at the issues, and I don't care who it is. They're never going to be right on all the issues. And for folks to go back and forth over stuff like that, I don't see the anti-hunting organizations or their supporters arguing over this kind of stuff. They're unified in wanting to end hunting, and we should be unified in wanting to save hunting.
Yeah, that's well said. And that's exactly, when I write my legislator, because the folks that are representing me currently here in Idaho at my state legislature for my districts, I voted for them. If people want to know how I voted, fine, look up my legislature if you know my address. But I don't really care. I voted for who I voted for. But I have not been shy when I write to them to tell them I voted for you, but this particular issue that you're wanting to vote for, that you're pushing or you're voicing support for, you're considering introducing, whatever it is, I'm not afraid to tell them that I completely disagree with it and it's crap. I try to be tactful, right? I say, hey, I voted for you. I really like what you did here and what you did over here, but this issue is a no-go. You can't move this one forward, right? And I think if I was a legislator and I read that, I would really appreciate that a lot more than just an inflammatory, orange man's bad syndrome, whatever that crap's called, a type of email. So I'm really glad, man. And that's to hear you say that. I just think that is the voice that you are sharing. Your voice, Howl's voice, is exactly what we need in the outdoor industry as a whole. If we're going to protect our lifestyle, whether you're a hunter, angler, trapper, or all the above, from attacks from any side of the political aisle. It's going to come from both sides. And you nailed it. Republicans, it's always going to be public land issues. They're going to want to sell lands and make money and do the capitalist thing. And I mean, that is something that Russ Fulcher here in Idaho, he's been back on the Idaho should control all the federal lands in our state thing. And, at face value, sometimes he makes some convincing arguments, but if you dig into it, there's just no way it would be feasible for us to successfully do that. And at the end of the day, most Western states, our constitutions, Idaho being one of them, says that state-owned lands have to be for profit of the people. And what's going to happen? It's going to get timber sales are going to happen first. And when we run out of timber sales, we're going to keep what we can mine, and what we can't keep for mining, they're going to sell for development. And whatever is too difficult to develop, maybe we'll get to keep as endowment lands after that. But it's going to look a lot different if Idaho owns our federal lands.
The state will run out of money. And I think what gets lost in the public lands deal, and it's complicated, and I certainly don't jump on to every single public lands campaign that I see, because some of them are hard to understand, and to some extent I know some of them are just politically motivated, for sure. I'm not ignorant to that. So I have to be really careful on all these issues. But I'm not like an expert on this stuff, so I rely on a lot of people that I trust from all sides to just figure out what's going on. But on the public lands deal, I do believe there are lands that aren't being used that could be sold, but it needs to be really specifically pointed out. Where are the lands exactly? But the cool part is, and maybe this needs reform, there's a process for it. It's called FLIPMA. And it's like, why don't we talk about that? Like, don't we have a process that lands are transferred all the time? And there's the FLIPMA process is, and that's what people are like left with, like, no, we can't. We have to have all the public lands and we can't sell any, blah, blah, blah. There's actually a process for it. And BHA is totally fine with that if there's a process for it, with it. Mm-hmm. It's not like they're just against it all. They're just against when Mike Lee comes out and is like, states shouldn't have, federal land shouldn't have any lands at all, and the state should own them all. Or he'll say, obviously there's some lands in Utah that, aren't being used by anybody and they should, okay, sure, I agree with that. But that's not what you're saying. You're not pointing that out. Like, show me on the map the place, and then let's have a conversation about that. You're just broad stroking the whole thing. And that's where it gets dangerous. And there's just all these nuances that just don't, that's what we have to focus on.
Yep.
And it's hard for me because there's just every day now. I don't, some of it's kind of trendy and some of it's not. Some of it's kind of like bandwagon stuff. I'm like, I'm not getting on every public lands deal here because frankly, I just don't know enough about it. And I'm not just going to do it because somebody else is doing it. But Mike Lee, we've been fighting Mike Lee bills, I think, since we started. He's an easy one. We know where
I don't think anybody likes that guy anymore, man. At least if you hunt, fish, or otherwise recreate on public lands, I think he's blackballed. It'll be interesting to see what happens with his political career as a result. But, I think you're 100% right, man. And I believe this thoroughly, that there has to be some sort of allowance for human flourishing, for human expansion. I don't want wilderness to go away. I want public lands to be managed and maintained as many as possible. But if we need to extract resources, to me, it's, for the national security aspect, if we can extract certain resources within our homelands and not rely on foreign adversarial nations to provide them, I don't love it. I don't want there to be like the Ambler Road up in Alaska. I don't want a 250-mile road carved into the Brooks Range. I've been up there. It's beautiful. I get why they want to protect it and why they want to preserve the Kobuk, and all of those things up there. But part of me also is like, well, if we need to do what we need to do so we can have the minerals we need in the national security, I'm a little bit more open-minded to it. It just has to be explained. And I do want to see the money trails and where the minerals are going to go. And as I know, there's all the controversy about who's going to own the mine, and are we selling the are they getting the minerals just to sell them back to us? And that whole thing looks like that's not entirely the case when you actually dig into it. And that could be a whole podcast, but it's just one example. Like, look at it. Let's be, like you said, let's go in there and make some strategical, extractions, resource extractions, sales if need be, but do it responsibly. I think the biggest argument a lot of people have on that stuff is the slippery slope argument. And if you start here, they're just going to want more. And before you know it, it's all going to be gone. And I get that. But then I would go back to what you were saying. There's been a process for it. They've sold federal lands before. So if there's a slippery slope, if that's a real analogy, if that analogy holds true, we've been on the slippery slope already.
Yeah. And again, you brought up Brooks Range. I just knew that was complicated. And it's like, so we never got into that. It was because I did not have the time to really dig into that. But I do agree with using a scalpel and not a chainsaw.
Yeah.
On everything, especially if we're talking about the government.
Oh, yeah, 100%. And, and with the Brooks Range, make it clear, I don't pretend to understand that whole issue either. My inclination is I hate to see that area messed with. But, I kind of also look at that as like, I'm not an Alaskan. I don't live up there. I'm not somebody in those villages. I don't know what it would do to the area like those folks up there would know. And I've heard a lot of good arguments on both sides of that coin. So I don't pretend to know that either, but it is one that just stands out in my mind. Yeah, man, I love it. I think as far as what you do at Howl, I really can appreciate your voice and how you're going about it, man, and not just being another inflammatory left-right politic, go with the breeze kind of thing. So thank you for being that, I don't know, voice of reason.
Yeah, no, we get called names by all sides, so.
Good. That means you're doing something right.
Yeah, I'll use words like being an activist, and people will call me, they're like, libtard, what do you mean activist? It's just like, whatever. You're useless anyways. You were never going to help,
Exactly.
But it's just funny. And in our name, Howl for Wildlife was on purpose. There's a lot of different reasons for that, but Howl for Wildlife doesn't sound like a pro hunting organization, but why shouldn't it? Like, that's crazy to me that something like that, we've gotten so far down the road that if I don't call myself, Mega Hunting Institute, .org, you know what I mean? then what are we all doing this for? Like, I believe that hunting is good for wildlife. I truly do. How for wildlife? I got no problems with wolves. I just want to manage them. Same thing with all species. Like I look at a lion really the same as I look at a mule deer or anything else. I don't have like a hierarchy of animals. So, just in our name, it throws people off on both sides, actually.
For sure.
There's a lot of anti-hunting orgs that they'll see something from Howl for Wild, or not orgs, but the individuals, they'll see something, Howl for Wildlife. That must be something I believe in. And they'll go ahead and take action without even looking at it. And I've seen where folks have shared our posts like, this is great. And I'm looking at their profiles. I'm like, this person has no idea. They're not even reading anything. And that's what most people do. They'll look at a logo or a slogan or something and just make their decision, which is ridiculous. But that's how people work.
Yeah.
It's funny to me. It's kind of comedy to me.
You've infiltrated, man. You're in an undercover role in that aspect.
For a while, definitely for a while, we're a little more well known now. But yeah, for 2 years, oh man,
that's
easy.
That's pretty funny. I never thought about that. Hey, everybody. I just want to take a quick break to thank you for listening to the Pursuing Freedom Outdoors podcast. And to thank you today, I want to offer you a discount at 360 Sportsman. Head over to 360sportsman.org now and use promo code PF15. That is PF15 to get 15% off your subscription to any of their master classes listed on the website. You can learn anything over there to improve your skills at hunting, fishing, trapping, snowmobiling. There's going to be first aid classes up there. They've got all kinds of stuff. There's even a how to build a house class coming. So anything you want to learn related to the outdoors or just making yourself a more knowledgeable human being, head over to 360sportsman.org. Use promo code PF to get 15% off any of their master classes. Want to thank you for listening to the Pursuing Freedom Outdoors podcast, and we'll get back to the show. Sweet, man. So you guys got a lot to look forward to, man. There's no shortage of issues for Howl to pay attention to. Real quick, as we wind this down, what are some of the big 2026 issues as we come into the new year that Howl's paying close attention to? And I don't care if it's at a state level or a federal level, but what are some ones that you're keeping an eye on and that maybe you should direct people's attention to?
Well, somewhere around mid-January is when all the, legislative season will start and all that. We'll, of course, see what comes down the pipe. So we kind of never know what's coming. But like we said, on public lands, that's going to be an issue. But the big things that have popped up recently that'll definitely spill over the 2026 and beyond are delisting of wolves. So the House voted to delist wolves, which all that means, and this is another thing I'll say, all that means is it's going to the Senate. Mm-hmm. That's it. Nothing's happened. But I've seen like a lot of victory posts and this is a celebration for hunters. And I'm just going, what are you talking about? Like this just got through one step. It changes nothing. We got to get it through the Senate for it to mean anything, and that would delist wolves, which means it recognizes that they are not, they're delisting. They're not on the endangered species list. That's what that means. And I say that specifically because I've been in a lot of wolf forums lately or conversations about it, and people simply they don't know what that means, exactly that terminology. And what is different about this bill is it has language in it that says not subject to judicial review. So when this passed in 2020, a judge, I believe from San Francisco, California or something like that, got involved, and basically the states couldn't manage their wolves anymore. If this passes through the Senate, it'll give the decision to the states to manage their wolves or not. I mean, I'm definitely not expecting all the states to start managing their wolves, if their population is at a point where it's deemed recovered and they can start managing them. But some states certainly, and that's where that decision should be. The Endangered Species Act is important, but it's not where something sits forever after it's become recovered. And that's the same issue with, of course, grizzly bears as well, and we got wolves. So those are two big things for sure. And, there's that legislative bill, but then there's also the Fish and Wildlife U.S. Fish and Wildlife can make this decision. So there's also that's going on right now as well to bring it back to the states, and they can just make that decision. And there's a lot of people who think that that's just the way that's going to go. So we got the bill, legislative possibility. And then also U.S. Fish and Wildlife can make that decision as well.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, but like that briefest of periods recently when grizzlies were delisted in the greater Yellowstone area, so like Wyoming, Idaho, Montana, I believe that was a Fish and Wildlife decision that got overturned by a judge, because they were going to have a couple of tags in all three states. We're going to be allowed to have a certain number of tags and have hunts. Montana, I believe it was, abstained from participating in the hunt at the time, but Idaho was going to issue a tag and Wyoming was going to issue, I think, 1 to 3 tags. So it wasn't going to be an absorbent amount of hunts going on. But I remember it was, fairly exciting because at the time I was getting into guiding in Idaho. I was like, man, maybe I'll get to guide a lower 48 grizzly one of these days. But yeah, the court shut that down. So to me, the grizzly bear thing and the wolf thing is really high on my watch list because wolves, we're already managing wolves in Idaho. And I'm with you, man. I love wolves. I love grizzly bears. I want them both on the landscape where they're supposed to be on the landscape. I don't want to see wolves eradicated again by any means, but I would love them to be managed. And I know people get frustrated when they're elk hunting and they hear a wolf howl. But part of me, man, when I'm out in the woods and I hear a wolf howl, to me, I'm like, heck yeah, man. Like, this is wilderness. There's freaking wolves out here. I'm not the only predator on the landscape. And I think it's awesome to be able to hear those animals and to see them and to have those encounters. That's harkens back to, caveman days. But grizzlies, man, I hope wolves get delisted by the Senate. And I think I had said the other way around. I don't know if I said it on the air pre-recording the Senate. But yeah, I hope that the Senate will pass that and that it gets signed into law. Grizzlies, man, I don't even know. I don't know if you have any updates on that, what to expect. But I just feel like we're dead in the water for now on grizzlies as far as delisting is concerned, unless I thought I'd heard that U.S. Fish and Wildlife was going to take another look at it and maybe take a shot at it again, but I don't know if I've heard anything definitive.
No, I don't know anything definitive. All I know is, again, back to the general public, that whole conversation, if it comes up, it all turns to slaughtering all the wolves and slaughtering all the, killing all the grizzly bears or blah, 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 blah. And like just that premise is completely wrong. The premise is completely wrong. There's delisting wolves does not mean slaughtering all of the wolves. There is a number of wolves that exist, depending on what state you're looking at. And there is a quota given for how many can be taken. And that's management. It's the same way. Like if you're going to say that, then are you also saying we're slaughtering all the deer? Because it's the same program. Like we have a population estimate of deer or antelope or whatever it is. There's a quota, there's a take, there's a limit on that. And it's adaptive. It changes. It can change every year. It can change every 5 years, whatever it is. The question I like to ask people is, okay, well, what's the number of wolves then that you're okay with? Where then we can start managing them, where we can start hunting them? Or is there just no limit? Is there no upper limit at all? And that's really, I think that's the kind of questions we have to be asking people and challenging the anti-hunting, orgs. So what number are you fine with then? And that's one thing with black bears in California, because after that bill, we had another battle at the commission, and the the Humane Society at the time, they were saying there was something like, there's only 12 or 13,000 bears in California. And they were giving all these reasons why there's 12 or 13,000 black bears. Well, what they didn't know at the time was there was quite a lengthy study going on. It wasn't quite finished, but now it is finished. Dr. Furness was brought up to the commission and he said, we're not done with this study yet, but it's looking like we have between 60 and 80,000 bears in California. And now that study's done and it remains at those levels. And one of our commissioners asked Wendy Kiefover, who was the Humane Society lady, she said, you've been focusing on the numbers. You're saying we can't have a bear hunt because all the wildfires and habitat and human encroachment, blah, blah, blah. The numbers are down to 12,000. She asked her, she said, what number then, now knowing what you know, are you okay with where the Humane Society is going to be fine with having a bear hunt? And I couldn't believe that one of our commissioners was asking the Humane Society representative this. And she couldn't give that answer. And she gave out numbers. She was like, what is it? Is it 50,000? Is it 40,000? Is it 60,000? At what point does everyone say, okay, these animals, they need to be managed? It's our responsibility. We're stewards. And they can't answer that question because at the end of the day, they want absolutely no hunting. They believe nature just takes care of itself, which is just a strange thing that humans aren't a part of nature and we don't affect, we got our hands everywhere across the world now. You know what I mean? It's just a strange thing that somehow it's all just going to work out without humans using, the tools that we have and data that we have and all these things that we can do, good or bad. It's a strange thing that people want to leave that out.
It is funny just because, you could argue depending on your worldview, do you have a Judeo-Christian worldview and with creationism theory, and this, you could argue, well, that means that you have dominion. And some people will say that means that you're supposed to conquer, or we'll take it that way. Some people would say that means that you have to steward, which is the way I tend to lean, right? I would have a Judeo-Christian worldview and I believe creationism. And I would argue that we were given the world and everything in it to steward, not to dominate and destroy. But then if you have a non-creationist worldview, all the things that you just said, all those, that worldview, a lot of people and anti-hunters, well, we're animals too. We're the human beast, I'm like, cool. So you're admitting we're part of nature, and we have one of the biggest impacts on nature just by existing, let alone meddling in wildlife management. So
100%. Yeah, I wrote an article on just that. It doesn't matter whether you believe in evolution or whatever, or creation. There's no way around us not being a part of nature, at all. So I just that argument really falls flat on its face. And the North American model that is of wildlife conservation that's been used over the last 100 years has used hunting as a tool. It's not the only tool, but hunting has been a tool of conservation. And because of the process that's set up, where how the money flows, and state biologists and setting rules and regulations and all that, and we can argue over that. Sometimes they get it wrong, sometimes they get it right. All that stuff. Wildlife populations have rebounded, and the same thing. Grizzlies being almost wiped out, and the same thing with wolves and them recovering. That's a conservation success story, and we should all be should be looked at exactly as that, as success. I also think it's just important to bring up, like with wolves and Colorado, for instance, and this is outside of a lot of people like to argue, well, these aren't the same wolves that were there 300 years, whatever. I don't care. If wolves or grizzly bears or whatever, if they could talk, which they can't, but I'm just bringing up a hypothetical. I don't think that, we're also in California, there's a pretty big effort here to bring grizzly bears into California, right? And the argument is they're a keystone species and they used to be here and they're good for the ecosystem. And it's just, I can't be convinced of that. And yes, I agree they used to be here. And yes, humans got rid of them, for sure. However, for me to be convinced that it's a good idea to bring grizzly bears into a state that now has 40 million people in it, it's not good for humans. The conflict, we already know the conflict that happens in Montana and Wyoming. And what is there, 1 million people that live in Wyoming? 1 million? And they get some tourism. Sure. California, that's a whole different, there's 40 million people that live here and a lot of tourism. Is it good for I question the motives. I don't think it's good for the grizzly bear. Does the grizzly bear want to be here in California? I don't think so. Do the wolves want to be in Colorado, where there's now 6 million people and there's ranches everywhere and there's roads everywhere and there's highways everywhere and just constant conflict? I don't think so. I really don't. I don't think it's good for them. And I think it's why so many of them have been killed in Wyoming, because they're on their way back, trying to get back to Canada. And I think it's really important to include North America. We look at North America when we look at wolves. If we look at North America, there's 80, 90,000 plus wolves. And guess where they live? Most of them, where people don't, because they like that. And that's good for them, right? This whole kind of cohabitation, the anti-hunters call it coexistence. I think we should take that word back, coexistence. Coexistence means wild animals and there's a healthy fear. And we use hunting as a management tool. I'll just throw that in there. Cohabitation is what the anti-hunters are actually trying to get at. They think like nature is peaceful and we can live with them. And bears in Lake Tahoe, it's fine because they were here first and we have to find a way to do this. That's cohabitation, and I don't think that's based in reality at all. I can't find the reality in that situation.
No, that's a fantasy.
It's a fantasy. Coexistence, I think, is having mountain lions in California, and we hunt them and we use dogs. We use whatever tools there are to make them afraid of humans so there's less conflict. And then it's better for the mountain lions. That's actually better for the mountain lions, because now what happens, got mountain lions. There's mountain lions all around where I'm at right now doing this podcast, and they walk down sidewalks. They just look at humans. They're just like, what are you doing? That's not a wild animal to me at all.
Yeah.
And then that mountain lion is going to cause conflict. And then guess what happens? That mountain lion still dies. There's no value on its life whatsoever. The meat doesn't get used. The hide isn't getting used. There's no money being put into a tag system, which goes to conservation. It's just killed, thrown somewhere.
I mean, it's wanton waste, right?
Yeah.
Really?
So, those are the conversations I like to have with people, because they're not thinking about it like that. There are other options. There are different ways to think about this. It's not about hunting isn't just about because there's a bunch of bloodthirsty, people out there that just want to go out and shoot something. That's not what it's about, but that's the story that's being told. And that's what really bothers me. And I think words are important and definitions are important. And that's what our community really has to tackle. And I think that's where we gain the most ground.
Well, I am really thankful. I've said it a couple of times already. I'll say it one more time. Really thankful for the voice that you have created for the hunting community with Howl. I really hope that you continue in your mission to reach non-hunters and provide them these reasonable discussion points and educate them. I also hope that you continue to reach hunters and teach them how to speak on issues, articulate these issues well, to be informative, to be approachable, and to not just get defensive and pissed off, which is just absolute human nature, because that doesn't do anybody any good. And I think it's important to remind sportsmen as we get out there on social media, as we all do, even if we like to pretend that we don't like it, we're addicted to it as a society. When you get out there on social media, just remember that the antis are going to poke and prod, and they're going to get on our favorite people's pages and comment inflammatory things. They're just poking you to provoke a fight so they can say, see, I told you, look at the dumb redneck cussing me out on Facebook. Don't give into it, man. Spit the facts out and just remember, some of these folks, you're not going to change their minds anyways. And I think you nailed it. We're reaching the middle group of non-hunters, not the anti-hunters. And yeah, really glad that you came on today. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Maybe we can get back together, at some point and just get an update on some of these things that are coming up. And, especially once we know what battles we're going to fight in the next legislative session. But yeah, your time is valuable. And if there's ever anything that I can do over here to be of assistance or spread the word, you just let me know, and love to help you out. So thank you so much, man. Any closing thoughts or anything before we take off?
No, I think, Deshaun, with what you were saying, well, I guess, yes. I guess with what you were saying is what I've been trying to do lately with a lot of these wolf comments is I've seen a lot of stupid comments besides the ones from hunters. And I hate those. I hate the shoot, shovel, shut up thing. Cause I'm like, what happened to the shut up part? Now you're talking about it. I hate that. But, hunters, when they throw out that stupid stuff and smoke a pack a day, and man, I've even seen some organizations that have sold t-shirts. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me right now. But besides that, really stupid comments coming from anti-hunters. And I think the best thing to do there, because that's a public forum and people see those comments, is find a articulate way to disarm that conversation that, uses their own words. Define, if they use the word slaughter, define slaughter. Here's what slaughter is. Here's what science-based wildlife management is. Let's talk about the state you're talking about. Here's the rules that apply in that state. So if you can write out all those things, and people are paying attention, people look at these things, and this can of course happen in any type of a conversation, but arm yourself with truth and facts. Get used to these definitions and the way things work in your state, and disarm those types of comments, because what you're actually doing is, maybe you're educating them, but you're educating the people who are watching as well, and just be a really good example. And that's what I've been trying to do lately, because I generally hate engaging in comments, but I'm like, well, if I engage in a different way, it'll be good for everybody. So I don't know. Try that, I guess, is my advice.
Love it, man. Will do. All right. Well, yeah. Charles Whitman, Howl for Wildlife. Thank you so much again. Hopefully, like I said, man, I hope you enjoyed coming on. We'll get you back on the show. Folks, if you want to learn more, you can go to howlforwildlife.org. I would encourage you, if you love hunting, fishing, angling, trapping, all the outdoor pursuits, and you haven't got involved in some sort of a organization that stands up for your rights, this is a good one to get involved with and put your money into. I can tell you that I have paid a membership at Howl for Wildlife. I'm all about it. So take that for what it's worth. Give them a look. And then last thing for the audience, just a reminder, I appreciate everybody's support on that drift boat project for Protectors Peak. We got it done, and we are still trying to raise. We do have the drift boat in hand, but like I told you guys in the last couple of episodes, we are still trying to raise a little bit of money just to put the finishing touches on that boat, put some minor repairs to it, and make it look good when we deliver it to the nonprofit for use this summer on the river, providing veterans and first responders some much needed rest and renewal on the river. So again, thanks for that. If you want to learn more about Protectors Peak, we got it in a previous episode, or you can reach out to me. Thanks for listening. Do all the things that podcasters ask you to do. If you like the episode or any of my episodes, like, subscribe, share, and do all those things. Comment, whatever it is, leave a review. Just let me know that you're listening. It helps tremendously. And for those that you have, thank you very much. And we will catch up with everybody next week. Thank you.
Thanks again. And if this resonates with you, I want to welcome you to the tribe and encourage you to share this podcast with your friends. Hit subscribe and follow us on Instagram at Pursuing Freedom Outdoors. And if you or someone you know has a great story about life or the wilderness, I want to share it. You can shoot me a message on Instagram or email me with all inquiries and questions at thomas@pursuingfreedomoutdoors.com. That's Thomas, THOMAS, at pursuingfreedomoutdoors.com. Until next time, get out there, get after it, and pursue freedom in the outdoors. Before we get started, I want to thank our first partner, Response Ready Medical. Response Ready Medical, bringing our customers the best quality training and equipment for the worst case scenario. Response Ready Medical's vision is to be the leading provider of emergency preparedness solutions across the United States, empowering communities, organizations, and individuals to respond confidently and preserve life during critical moments. Offering same-day certification, all Response Ready Medical classes are instructed by nationally registered and state-licensed firefighter, paramedics, law enforcement officers, and hospital staff. Classes currently being offered by Response Ready Medical include CPR and AED, CPR, AED, and first aid, emergency trauma care, child and babysitting safety, CABS, backcountry medicine, and wilderness first aid. Your premium partner in emergency preparedness, Response Ready Medical.